What's up, guys? How are you all doing? This is Rob of Rule of Two Review. Welcome back to the channel, and today I want to talk about The Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom and what it might mean for Nintendo's overall future. So right now, Tears of the Kingdom is only a mere 5 months away, which kind of doesn't feel real given how long we went through waiting for information and a title and a release date about that game. We literally had to call that game Breath of the Wild 2 for like almost 3 years. It was crazy. But now we know what the game truly is called. It's called Tears of the Kingdom. We've seen 3 mini teasers of the game. Most of this game and the content and the story and the locations and the gameplay is still a mystery, which is a tad frustrating, but it was still great to get that title reveal recently, as well as the official date of May 12th, 2023. And with the game so close, and with so many possible things on the horizon for Nintendo in 2023, including in the realm of hardware, and if their next generation or a big technological leap is coming, I thought it was important to talk about how Tears of the Kingdom may fit into their hardware plans. Now, obviously, the topic of whether or not Tears of the Kingdom's release date has anything to do with coinciding with the release of new hardware or Switch hardware or a Switch Pro or a Switch 2 or any of that stuff. Plenty of people have talked about Tears of the Kingdom releasing at the exact same time as this new hardware. And that is an option on the table. We all know the comparisons to Twilight Princess and to Breath of the Wild, both of those releasing on 2 consoles, signaling the end of one generation and the beginning of another. And given that it's been so long since the first Breath of the Wild, we're coming into the 7th year of the Switch. In fact, Tears of the Kingdom will actually release within the 7th year of the Switch. It's an understandable thought. And even though I've been one of the people championing the idea of next-gen hardware next year, I'm not 100% bought into that idea exactly. I certainly don't think it's impossible. Of course, given everything I've believed about next-gen next year, it does make sense for Tears of the Kingdom to in some way signal the beginning of Nintendo's next official generation or big technological leap over the current Switch. But I don't really want to focus so much on Tears of the Kingdom doing exactly that, and more I want to talk about how Tears of the Kingdom could still, in a tangential conversation, signal the pseudo-end of the Switch's main dominance and sort of serve as a bit of a swan song to the console. Like I said, we're coming up on the Switch's 6th birthday, which means we're going to be entering the Switch's 7th year of life. March 3rd, 2023 means it'll be the 6th complete year of the Nintendo Switch, which also means the very next day on March 4th of 2023, that will be the first day of the console's 7th year of life. And that means that 2 months later, when Tears of the Kingdom finally launches, that's going to be launching in that 7th year. The console will be pretty old at that point. It's not ancient history, and obviously with so many good games and it's still being a quality built machine overall, there is life in the Switch for another few years. I think most of us know that. But will it be the only console and hardware Nintendo is making for the next few years? That's what I don't personally believe, and we're seeing tons of signs that other people feel the same as well. The Switch might be mass-produced and sold for another 3 or 4 some odd years beyond right now, but I think well before that time is done, they will have already introduced their new hardware. And Tears of the Kingdom, again, as the next big Zelda game, the direct sequel to Breath of the Wild, it is positioning itself to be one of the last major exclusive first-party, high-profile releases on the current Switch, especially to release on the current Switch before the next hardware might be introduced. If my predictions and guesses and the rest of the internet's predictions and guesses are wrong, and Nintendo's next big hardware jump isn't for another 2 years, let's say, then that means that this whole concept is wrong, and Tears of the Kingdom definitely won't represent the swan song for the Switch, because I think in order to be the swan song for the Switch, it needs to be one of the last big tentpole games before their next generation releases. Or, like some people think, if it's at the same time, if it releases cross-generation, like, let's say on the same day as the next Switch, right? It's not impossible for March 12th, 2023 to be the release date of Tears of the Kingdom on the Switch, as well as a new Nintendo console or a new Switch console, and also Tears of the Kingdom on that new console. In theory, it's still not impossible for all 3 of those products to release on the same day, May 12th, 2023. But it doesn't have to do that to still be signaling the swan song scenario for the Nintendo Switch, right? Because I think it's possible that, and this is just one of many scenarios, I'm not saying this is exactly what I think will happen, it's just an example of something on the table. The game could release as a Switch-only title in May next year like it's currently planned to, and maybe by the end of the year, we see a new Nintendo console or a new Switch console that is technically next generation and much more powerful. Maybe that even releases by the end of the year, and why couldn't there be a Tears of the Kingdom Deluxe or a Tears of the Kingdom Definitive Edition or Tears of the Kingdom Next Gen Edition, whatever title, something that would release also on that new hardware when it releases down the road, and just feature more power, better graphics, better frame rate, better textures, and just everything, more content, simply because it's releasing as a next-gen game. I think there is a chance that that does happen, and if it does, I still think we can then view the Switch release of Tears of the Kingdom as probably one of the last big first-party releases on the Switch. A huge element to why this makes sense to me going into 2023 touches on what I've already mentioned in this video, and it's the fact that twice before already, we've seen Nintendo use the Zelda franchise and the newest, biggest mainline entry in that franchise to represent the end of one generation as well as the beginning of a new generation. Twilight Princess released on the Nintendo Wii first, brand new the same day the Wii launched in November of 2006, and a few months later released the last-gen version of that game for the GameCube. That was a situation where the next-gen version of the game released before the last-gen version. With Breath of the Wild, we know that's not true. It released the exact same day on both the Wii U and the Switch. And so essentially, what they did with Breath of the Wild is the same thing they might do with Tears of the Kingdom, where that game came out on the Wii U, it came out on the Switch, and the Switch itself came out on the same day on March 3rd. Now, what I will say is, I think we're cutting it a little bit close for Nintendo's next-gen upgrade or hardware or console to be ready the same day as Tears of the Kingdom. You know, I know Nintendo likes to kind of cut it short nowadays, and maybe they feel they only need about 6 or so months' time to announce a new console and then release that new console. But we're less than 5 months away, and unless Nintendo is really changing the game on us and planning to surprise us, I feel like we would have already known something concrete about new hardware. So I really don't think we're going to see the new Nintendo hardware the same day as Tears of the Kingdom. I more go back to my other theory that I laid out here, where instead the Switch version releases in May, and then 6 months later we see the new Nintendo console, and whenever that thing launches, maybe we also get a next-gen version of Tears of the Kingdom that's releasing after the original release this coming May. To me, that makes the most sense. And of course, I mentioned recently that games like Metroid Prime 4 and Pikmin 4 and even like a Mario Kart 9 and whatnot, these could be games that are also currently being primed for the first release launch year of the next console as well. It just makes too much sense. Now, if some of those titles also become cross-gen, like Metroid Prime 4 I think is also probably going to be cross-gen, then does that title become more of a swan song title than Zelda? Technically, yes, but as much as I think Metroid Prime 4 is going to be the better game, and I think it's going to sell better than any Metroid game before it, I don't know if it's going to be the same tier as Tears of the Kingdom. To me, Tears of the Kingdom is so massive, and just like Twilight Princess and Breath of the Wild before it, could serve so well as that last swan song title for the current Switch next year that it's just too perfect. Nothing is set in stone. All anyone can do is guess and speculate and predict. That's what I'm doing now. It's what I've been doing for a few years. It's what plenty of other people on YouTube and on Twitter are starting to do as well. We're all just guessing about 2023. Clearly, it feels like next year, 2023, is the time where all of these different desires and predictions about Nintendo's business are converging. Something big is happening in 2023. We already know Tears of the Kingdom is coming in the first half of the year. Does the second half of the year bring with it new hardware, a technology leap, Metroid Prime 4, a definitive edition of Tears of the Kingdom releasing on this next generation console? All of these things are possible, and I think it leads to the basic thesis of this video, meaning that Tears of the Kingdom could be one of, if not the very last release on the current Switch of that tier, right? Even a Pikmin 4 or even a Metroid Prime 4 isn't the same tier or caliber as a Tears of the Kingdom, a brand new Zelda game, right? To me, the kind of title that can serve as like a swan song caliber title would be a new Zelda game, it would be a new Mario game, it would be a new Pokemon game, or it could be maybe even something like a new Animal Crossing game, for example. Those massive, unfathomably successful titles that are exclusive to Nintendo, those are the titles that, to me, represent the swan song. I wish I could count Metroid among them, but I can't, even though it's my favorite franchise, and that's okay, because it's still a very popular and successful franchise in its own right, and that's fine for me. And so I go back to thinking about Pikmin 4 or Metroid Prime 4, and even though I think those games very likely will still get a version released on the Switch, I think Tears of the Kingdom in May of 2023 currently exists as the best chance for Nintendo's swan song title on the current Switch.